Let's quickly talk about the different kind of question types there are and how to set them up. We'll start at the top, multiple choice. Write your question and write your answers. Down at the bottom, you will select the correct answer. You can also add alternative answers. And you can shuffle options and set the question for multiple responses if there is more than one correct answer. There's a spot for notes, and there's a spot for learning objectives if you'd like to add them. After each question, please make sure you save so that you do not lose the work that you've completed. After you've created a question, you can also preview what the question will look like for your students. True, false. Question, answer. True or false. You set up what the correct answer is, and you can require a correction if it's false. For matching, you'll set up your question, what the students are going to see for matching. And down below, you are going to complete the correct answers. You can select exact match or partial match. If you select partial match, they will get, for example, if this was a 4-point question and they get 2 correct and 2 wrong, they will get half credit for that question. And we'll save. Remember, if you don't save, you will lose your question. Ordering. Question, option types, and then put them in the correct order. Fill in the blank text. For this one, you can see we need an underscore for anything that needs an answer. For example, when I do an underscore, it gives me a spot for a response. You can have multiple responses in one question. And don't forget, in any of these questions, you can use any of this rich text to include links, photos, equations, special characters, etc. Now we're getting into the new questions. Those first 5 are new ways of setting up the same kinds of questions that the regular Schoology test/quiz tool gives you. Now we're getting into the newer stuff. So this is fill in the blank drop down. So this gives us more options. Again, we use an underscore for the response. And here is where I'm going to add the options. And below, I'm going to select the correct answer. I'm going to save it. I'm also going to preview that one. The letter after A is, so this is how the student will see the question. Fill in the blank, drag and drop. Similar, again. Underscore for a response. Add my possible options here. I can have more options than our correct answers if I would like. And below here, I choose my correct answers. And save. Short answer / essay. So here is where you're going to have your prompt. These are text formatting options for students, so you can make it so they can't use a bullet list, they can't use underline if you would like, or you can choose some formatting that might not be available. Maximum word length, and you can also align a rubric here. You can even create one on the spot to use for that essay question. Label image. Okay, so here we're going to say label this image, and we're going to upload the image. I'm just going to grab a random screenshot that I have on my desktop. It's a screenshot of Schoology. I'll give it a title. And as I add response boxes, this is going to be where students have to label the various spots on the image. So these are the possible answers that they can use. They'll drag and drop. And now you can see I have them here. I can drag them for the correct answer. And I can save my question. Remember, always save it. If you're going to preview the question, save it first. I've often gone to preview a question, exited out of it, and then lost that question. So this is exactly how the student would see the question. The next kind of question is highlight hotspot. This is a particularly interesting one for elementary. What we're going to do here is we're going to upload an image. I've got one ready on my desktop. Here's my image. Now for a highlight hotspot, what we're going to do is we're going to make spots that the students are going to tap or click for their answer. So I'm just clicking to make little areas for each of these letters. So now these are going to be the options for the students. My question will be, tap on the letter A. Down at the bottom, we select what the correct answer will be and save. This is how a student will view the question. They'll have the ability to select one of the letters, and this could be used for many things. You could use it for tapping a region on a map, for selecting the correct animal or shape. There are endless uses for this type of question. Highlight image. I'm going to use the same image for this kind of question. For this question, it's not going to show the image once we've attached it. We'll know it's attached because it's right here. Then students are going to be able to use these colors to highlight the image. I'm going to direct students to circle the letter A, and I'm going to preview this question so you can see what it will look like. Here's my image that I uploaded. Here are the directions to circle the letter A. Here are my available colors. And the student will use these colors to highlight the image. Highlight text. This is going to be one where students can highlight a word, or a phrase, or a sentence of text that you have written down. So right now, I just have a couple of sentences up. And when I go to possible responses, I can select what I want students to highlight. A word, a sentence, or a paragraph. I'm going to select sentence. So here are the possibilities for sentences. Now down here is going to be where I highlight the text. Next, we're going to do a math short answer. Math short answer allows you to create an open-ended question that may require mathematical symbols in the response. So you'll enter your question here, which can include tables, it can include mathematical equations, and if you're ever unsure of what these buttons mean, if you hover over, it'll give you the tooltip description of what it does. Next, you will decide which text formatting options the students will have, and you can add more if needed. Down here, you're going to enable student access to mathematical keyboards in the symbols area. You can add additional ones if needed by clicking plus option. On the right, you can add any additional math keyboards if needed. Next, you're going to select the default mode. If you select math, the math equation keyboard is going to display by default for the student. If you choose text, the keyboard will display by default for students. I'm going to select math for now. For adding text blocks, this will define a list of custom units such as grams, kilograms, centimeters, etc. that will not be rendered as latex. The students can type in the units in a text block while answering a question with a numerical answer without having to switch back to the text keyboard. You can click option to add additional text blocks, and you can click X next to it if you want to remove it. Let's take a look at what this question looks like from the student perspective. So here's the question, and if I click here, I have the math, like I said, as my default. I can switch to text here. I can switch back to math, and I can also switch my keyboard or the symbols that I'm using here as well as a student. Next, we have the number line question. I'm going to give you the basics on this, but this has a lot of kind of intricate details to it. So if you're looking for those more intricate details for this kind of question, make sure to check out the Guide to Assessment question types, which is listed beneath this video in the Schoology assignment. All right, so what we do is first we set up the question about the timeline that we're creating. We can give the timeline a title, a minimum and a maximum value, what the responses will be. If we go to additional setup options, you can change things around. For example, like I just changed the tick distance, which made this a much more readable timeline, which will allow me to then set my correct answers. Keep in mind, you have other options down here as well. For example, if you want to show the arrows, and there's fraction formats, rendering base. These are all things that you can read more about if you'd like in the assessment type questions guide that Schoology has provided. For the threshold response, you can set the correct answer threshold to determine how close to the correct answer a student must be in order for it to still be marked correct. So, for example, if the correct answer is 1975, you set the threshold at 0, it has to be exactly 1975 to get the points. If you set the threshold at 1, then if it's 1970 or 1980 would also be accepted. Here's how the question will look to a student. The last question type we have is chart. We'll start with our question. And remember, there's all kinds of rich text editing features you can use, and you can just hover over to see what they do when you click them. Then we're going to set up certain parameters. So title of the chart, y-axis value, titles of the axis, and then the x-axis. So on and so forth. And you can add more down here. Only the items that are selected as interactive will be things that students can change the value of. So now you can see we have our table started here. And depending on, for example, like if in my question I listed a tally of the ages of people at the family reunion, down here, students would manipulate the chart to answer the question. You can use the threshold again to set a distance from the correct answer, which a student can set the point at and still receive credit. Click Ignore Order if students may ignore the order of the points in the chart. There's also additional setup options where you can change the kind of chart that the students manipulate. You can also add new points to let students add new points to the chart by clicking the Add Data button, which displays in the question. I'll put that in there. Edit points so that they can edit the labels. Delete point, they can then delete points, make the new points interactive, or reorder points. So I'll just turn all of these on so we can look. Gonna change this back to a bar chart. Save. And let's preview this question. So students can add data, for example. So maybe they have to add 30 to 39, etc. And we reorder by using these arrows. Again, there are more detailed instructions for what all of these different settings do for this kind of question in the Schoology article. All right, that's a wrap. That's all of the different kinds of questions that you can use in the new Schoology assessment. I would perhaps bookmark the resource that's listed beneath this video because it has clickable links for every kind of question with screenshots walking you through, just in case you get stuck on trying to create a question for your students.